Sebastian Miller Martinez, MMAnytt, here in London with Dan Hardy, commentator and former title challenger. So, we're here ahead of what could very well be one of the biggest fights ever on Fight Pass.
Yeah.
Or would you say the biggest?
It's got to be the biggest. Michael Bisping's been in the UFC for just as long as Anderson Silva has. Obviously, they have different achievements. Michael Bisping's got the work rate and the output. Anderson Silva obviously is Anderson Silva, and to see two great middleweights clash on a card like this is, it's perfect. Especially the O2 Arena in London. Michael always looks great in his his home country. So. It's also nice to see Anderson Silva back here after his successful days at Cage Rage.
Yeah. It's a bit of a coming back party almost, because both of them built up their names in Cage Rage, and now we're both back facing each other. Like, do you see like it's almost like a bit of like a twist of fate? Like, they could have very easily fought each other in Cage Rage, but now it's happening in the UFC.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer. This fight had to happen at some point. We get two really talented kickboxers with very contrasting styles. Yeah. Just as a fan, I want to see this fight. I want to see how it works. I know how talented and skilled Michael Bisping is, but I also know the problems that Anderson Silva could cause him. So it made sense for this fight to happen. And to be honest, as much as they could have crossed paths earlier on in their career, now's the right time. Now's the right time, because one of the two is going to look to move back into the top 5 and start challenging for the belt again. And obviously, Michael's been keen for that for a long time. Anderson definitely feels like he can get back to that stage that he was in the past. So. I think the timing's perfect, and the venue it could be better.
All right, well, on to a much harder question to answer. Would you say that this is the biggest UFC fight in English history? Because there have been some other good ones, Rampage against Henderson. One could even argue for, the very first time the UFC came to England. But, considering the names and the status that Michael Bisping has, what do you think? Is this really the biggest UFC fight in English history?
I think it has to be. I think just alone the two fighters in the main event are so well established in comparison to everybody else. You could look back to UFC 38 and you got Ian Freeman against Frank Mir. For me that was a massive fight, because I knew Ian. He was around fighting on cards when I was coming up, and I trained with him a little. Obviously, Frank Mir at the time was one of the scariest prospects in the heavyweight division. It didn't take him long before he had the belt around his waist. And that was a massive fight, but obviously that's it's so far into the history of the UFC that we've got to start looking past it. And we've had some big fights. Obviously, Matt Hughes has been over here. We've had BJ Penn in the UK. I fought on the same card as Michael when Randy Couture and Brandon Vera fought. That's huge to have
you got your title shot.
Exactly, to have those two guys on the card together. But there's just something different about Anderson Silva, and I don't think that can be denied by anybody. Even Michael Bisping will admit it. Anderson Silva's one of those special athletes. He's one of the most famous, well-known martial artists in the world across all martial arts, across all combat sports. And Michael's the kind of guy that rises to that occasion. Yeah. And, the winner of the Ultimate Fighter, he's been the leader of UK mixed martial arts for a while. He's paved the way for myself and a lot of other fighters. So to get him on this card against Anderson Silva, it's a coming home party, but kind of for both fighters. It's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely, well said. But, obviously that's not the only fight of the card. It's the one that's getting most attention, and rightfully so. But what do you say is kind of like the sleeper fight, flying under the radar, that, people aren't paying attention to, but that they definitely should tune in for?
I think there are a lot, to be honest. First and foremost, I think the two guys that spent the time in the Ultimate Fighter house together. We've got David Seymour against Martin Svensson.
Very well chosen for our viewers as well.
And that's not at all a specific pick. I just think that they're both very exciting fighters. They've both got very, very opposing skill sets, but at the same time, because they spent so much time in the house together, they had similar coaching, they had similar experiences. So it's all about when you take a fighter out of the Ultimate Fighter house and you put them back with their team, it's how they utilise that experience. Yeah. And we're going to get to see two guys that are very evenly matched, I think, facing off for relevance in a stacked division. I think it's an exciting fight, and then as you move up the card, there are so many good fights. The last fight on the undercard really is there's so much tension around that. We had the media scrum this morning, and they're yelling at each other, and again, it's the featherweight division. It's stacked, and these two guys have both got the potential to step up and become top 10 contenders very, very soon. So there's a lot to play for in this fight, and I definitely think from Mike Wilkinson's perspective, he feels like he needs to be fighting more regularly, be more competitive regularly. We've certainly seen him once here and there because of injuries and this and that. So he needs to start thinking about 2016 be the year when he puts 3 good wins together, and a win over Makwan Amirkhani is a really good start to that.
All right, well, in that case, I want to get a quick prediction from you on Svensson versus Tamer. Tough fight to call. Like, I mean, basically striker versus grappler, and I mean, I think really it is a bit of a coin toss, just whoever gets to put in her strength. But I mean, who do you think sort of tips the edge in that one?
Well, aggression obviously goes to David, in my opinion. I think he's. I like his aggression, but at the same time, when you're fighting a very skilled submission guy, that recklessness can cost you.
You saw that in the Ultimate Fighter, obviously. Exactly,
yeah. I mean, he really loads up into shots, and he really throws himself, even when an opponent's on the floor with his ground up hand, he really throws his whole body weight into it. And someone as tricky as Martin is quite capable of sweeping him, slipping to the back, and start working all kinds of dangerous submissions. And I mean, that is the danger. So not only is it interesting because they both can have a lot of energy, a lot of excitement for this event, but they've also got to hold back a little bit and remember the dangers of each guy, because they don't contest in the same areas. They don't, like Martin, although he will stand and trade with David, it's not the best choice for him, in my opinion. We know his ground game is his strength, so that's where he should try and force the fight. But sometimes it just doesn't play out that way. You know what I mean? It really is down to which fighters utilise that experience of the Ultimate Fighter better, and which ones come in more prepared to implement a game plan that can win.
All right. I don't know if I got a clear-cut prediction.
No. I don't mind hinting at predictions when I'm not working, but if I'm working the card, Mark Goddard, the referee, always said something in his judging seminar that stuck with me, and he said, "You can't be preoccupied with what you think might happen." Now, if I say, okay, Michael Bisping is going to wear Anderson Silva out and beat him by decision, that's quite possible. If I say Anderson Silva is going to knock Michael Bisping out with a clean left hook, that's also possible. But if I pick one or the other, then I am effectively commentating, waiting for that to happen, subconsciously, you know what I mean? And I think it's only fair for the fighters to identify both their opportunities to win the fight and to see each one as a possibility. That's the only way I can really give an honest and fair opinion.
Okay. Well, in that case, fans should just be sure to watch the card regardless, because there's some great fights coming up.